Lord of War is a 2005 American crime drama film written, produced, and directed by Andrew Niccol, and co-produced by and starring Nicolas Cage. The film was released in the United States on September 16, 2005, to positive reviews and grossed $72.6 million at the box office. Cage plays a fictional illegal arms dealer, inspired by the stories of several real-life arms dealers and smugglers. The film was officially endorsed by the human rights group Amnesty International for highlighting the issue of illicit arms trafficking by the international arms industry. Storyline. In the early 1980s, Yuri Orlov, Nicolas Cage, the eldest son of a family of Ukrainian refugees, is visiting a Brighton Beach restaurant where he witnesses a Russian mobster kill two would-be assassins holding Kalashnikov rifles. The incident inspires him to go into the arms trade. Yuri muses that the constant need for weapons is similar to the human need for food and drink, thus he can make a fortune. After successfully completing his first sale of an Uzi submachine gun to a local mobster, Yuri convinces his younger brother, Vitaly, Jared Leto, to become his partner. The two brothers get their first big break during the 1982 Lebanon War, where they sell weapons to both Israeli and Lebanese troops despite witnessing the same weapons being used to commit war crimes and other atrocities. As Yuri begins to prosper by exploiting his growing network of business connections, he comes to the attention of Interpol and in particular, an idealistic agent named Jack Valentine, Ethan Hawke. Valentine represents a unique threat to Yuri because he is after glory, not money, and thus cannot be bought off. Vitaly becomes addicted to cocaine after a Colombian drug lord forces the brothers to accept several kilos of cocaine to pay for an arms sale of numerous Glock 17 pistols. Yuri quietly checks Vitaly into a drug rehabilitation clinic and continues his business alone. He lures childhood crush Ava Fontaine, Bridget Moynihan, to a false photo shoot, and they subsequently get married and have a son. Following the dissolution of the Soviet Union, Yuri flies to Ukraine and illegally buys Russian tanks, guns, and munitions through his uncle, a former Soviet general who is overseeing the distribution of weapons to the newly formed Ukrainian army. Yuri then expands his business to Africa, where he begins a business relationship with Andre Baptiste Sr. Eamon Walker, a ruthless dictator engaged in a brutal civil war in Liberia. During one flight into Africa in 2001, Yuri's plane is intercepted by Valentine and forced to land. Yuri escapes arrest by landing in a remote area and giving away all of his cargo to the locals. Valentine then tells Ava her husband is an arms dealer, prompting her to confront him. To please his wife, Yuri tries to legitimize his business, but soon becomes frustrated with the difficulties and lower earnings of honest work. When Baptiste visits him in person and offers him the largest payday of his career, a stash of valuable blood diamonds, Yuri goes back to crime. Yuri picks up Vitaly to assist him with a major deal in Sierra Leone, where a militia force allied with Baptiste is visibly preparing to destroy a refugee camp. Unable to stomach his guilt, Vitaly pleads with Yuri to abandon the deal, but his brother refuses, knowing that Baptiste's men will kill them for refusing to hand over the guns. Vitaly then steals a pair of grenades and uses them to destroy a truck full of weapons, accidentally killing Baptiste's son. He is gunned down by the militia, and while Yuri is spared due to his relationship with Baptiste Sr., he only receives half of the diamonds he was promised due to half of the shipment being destroyed. He then watches helpless as the militia massacres the refugees. Yuri ships his brother's remains back to the United States. He pays a doctor to forge a phony death certificate and remove the bullets from Vitaly's body, but one bullet remains, and Yuri is apprehended by federal agents. Meanwhile, while being followed by Valentine, Ava finds a security container belonging to her husband, finally establishing definitive proof of Yuri's guilt. Ava also finds the container full of her paintings, which Yuri secretly bought to prop up her career as an artist. Ava takes their son and leaves him for good. When Yuri tries to reconcile with his parents, his mother angrily disowns him for getting Vitaly killed. Valentine detains Yuri in anticipation of his trial and conviction, but Yuri is unfazed. He then tells Valentine that, in a matter of minutes, a high-ranking American army officer will arrive and release him without any charges being filed. He explains that while he may be a criminal, the US government is willing to turn a blind eye to his crimes because most of his weapons end up in the hands of their allies, who they cannot be seen publicly supplying with arms. Valentine then hears a knock at the door and realizes that Yuri is right, but before walking away, he says, "I would tell you to go to hell, but I think you're already there." Yuri soon returns to the arms trade, claiming that it's what he does best. The film concludes with a statement on how the 5 largest arms producers in the world are also the 5 permanent members of the United Nations Security Council. Did you know? According to writer and director Andrew Niccol, the filmmakers worked with actual gunrunners in the making of this movie. The tanks lined up for sale were real and belonged to a Czech arms dealer who had to have them back to sell to another country. They used a real stockpile of over 3,000 AK-47s because it was cheaper than getting prop guns. No US studio would back this movie. International finances were secured instead. Before shooting the scene, where tanks were lined up for sale, the filmmakers had to warn NATO lest they thought a real war was being started when they saw satellite images of the set. Yuri Orlov, Nicolas Cage, was largely based on the exploits of international arms dealer Viktor Bout, a former Soviet officer who was finally arrested by Thai authorities in March 2008. Bout, known as the Merchant of Death, was trying to make a deal with American agents posing as FARC insurgents when he was apprehended. After languishing in a Bangkok prison awaiting extradition by the US, he was tried and found guilty and awaits sentencing in a Manhattan prison. The quote from Orlov seems appropriate. "I know that, just because they needed me that day, didn't mean that they wouldn't make me a scapegoat the next." As a further reference, Orlov's father is named Anatoly, just like Bout's father. When it was released on DVD in the United States, the studio accidentally released it in 1.781. The correct aspect ratio is 2.351. See you later.